All right, guys. I recently attended an event in regards to White Stadium. It was last Thursday, I believe. And I wanted to shed some levels of light or some insight of what is actually happening. So, Boston's White Stadium is currently in the process of being torn down. Trees are being removed, so on and so forth. It's really a sad story. But the real story is hidden behind closed doors. And here's why. So currently, the taxpayers' dollars are at stake here. And there is a legal battle going on in regards to this. And, you start to question whether there is some levels of a conflict of interest going on. And I'm going to get into that in a few minutes here. And the reality is this. It's not just about building a new stadium. This is about power. This is about a lack of transparency. And again, when you start to look behind the curtain, you start to realize who actually stands to benefit. So this project started as a way to modernize an old sports facility, but it's since turned into a whirlwind of lawsuits. The community they're upset. They're outraged. The costs keep on increasing. And again, there's the question of some levels of transparency. I don't understand why they let it get this bad. Why didn't they put any money into this over the years? It almost seems deliberate to me. It's unbelievable. And here's the thing. If you're new here, I'll explain a little bit of what's going on. So Boston's mayor, Michelle Wu, has been pushing for a $200 million redevelopment plan for White Stadium. And the idea is to transform it into a state-of-the-art facility for a new professional women's soccer team. The city is partnering with Boston Unity Soccer Partners, or BUSP, in short, to make this happen. And the catch is, this project is split 50-50, with $100 million coming straight from Boston's taxpayers. And that's a huge chunk of money. That's a huge chunk of money, public money. And it's got a lot of people wondering, why wasn't more affordable options even considered? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. But here's where it gets a little murky. So the project's cost skyrocketed from an initial $50 million to a massive $200 million. And here's the thing, guys. The mayor has committed to this. She's doubling down on this. She said verbatim she's going to do whatever it costs, which could mean even more taxpayer dollars down the drain if things go over budget. And a lot of times, especially in the time that we're in with tariffs and so on and so forth, there's a high probability that it could potentially cost more for concrete, for steel, for whatever it's going to take to get this project off the ground. Anything that's being imported to some capacity could essentially be more money. Now, moving forward, the community group, and I attended this event, they're called the Franklin Park Defenders, and they're basically asking a very simple question, and that's why Boston didn't explore more affordable fully public alternatives, because right now this is not going to be that accessible to the public. And one of the proposals suggested renovating White Stadium as a public high school facility and as a public space for just a fraction of the cost, in comparison to what's on the table now. And you know what? I'll actually link the plans to that in the description. But really, why wasn't that considered? It doesn't make any sense. And, if you thought the financials were out of hand or somewhat sketchy, let me tell you this. There is a legal battle going on in regards to White Stadium. The Emerald Necklace Conservancy and the Franklin Park Defenders have filed a lawsuit against the city of Boston. And what they're doing is they're arguing that this project violates Article 97 of the Massachusetts Constitution, which basically means that they should be protecting public open spaces from being turned into private ventures. And that's effectively what is happening right now. And the lawsuit claims that the lease agreement with BUSP essentially hands over public land for that private gain. And what they are doing is they're bypassing legislative approvals and the community input. They're not listening to the community at all. There's a court date set for, I think it's like 2 weeks into March of this year. But the demolition is already underway. They're removing trees. There's all fencing around it. It's happening now. And they're not waiting on the court's decision. They're not waiting. They're just doing whatever it takes. Here's where it gets even more crazy. An editorial that I was reading by the Boston Herald pointed out a potential conflict of interest that could explain why we're not really hearing more criticism in the media. So, Linda Henry, who is the CEO of the Boston Globe and the wife of the paper's owner, I believe his name is John Henry, she's an investor in the BUSP. And despite this, the Globe's reporting on White Stadium has not disclosed this connection. And a lot of people, they see this and they're concerned with this because it involves in some levels of media transparency. And I'm big on transparency here, guys. I'm big on transparency. And it's just, it's not fair. It's not fair to the people of Boston. So if one of the city's biggest newspapers, let's call it, isn't telling the full story, how much of what we are hearing can we really trust? Even stuff that other publications that they decide to process, right? Here's the other crazy thing. The company that's doing the work on White Stadium is called Able Company, and they're the lead developer, and they are a partner with BUSP. And apparently, I don't even believe this went up for bid, which is also crazy. And this company is run by the husband of Jennifer Epstein. Who is Jennifer Epstein, you may be asking? Well, it's one of the core investors of BUSP. And of course, now her husband is doing the work on the project. It's unbelievable. This is a problem. And this is a major issue when it comes to transparency. And it's really unbelievable. It's really, really unbelievable. Normally, projects like this go up for bid, and they're usually a closed bid. Apparently, that is not happening. This guy got the work because his wife is invested in this project. Now, while I was at that meeting, and I'm sorry this video is long, I met Josh Kraft there, and he's running for mayor against Boston's mayor, Michelle Wu. And he's trying to hit the brakes on this demolition until the courts have their say. And what Josh is arguing is that this whole thing looks like a deal that benefits wealthy investors while leaving the community behind. And honestly, both myself and a lot of the residents, they agree. I'm in agreement with that. And they're worried about losing their green space, having limited access to public parks on game days, and the potential displacement of Boston Public Schools football programs. And that is what a major, major issue is. So here's my opinion, on this whole entire thing. First of all, it's absolutely crazy. Second of all, there's a massive lack of transparency here. And it seems like there's like these shady deals that are going on behind the scenes. And it's insulting to the residents of the city. More importantly, it's insulting to the residents that are nearest Franklin Park. It's really a disgrace to misuse public funds for a private project. It doesn't make any sense. On top of that, when you start to look at the lease agreement and so on and so forth, and you start to work up the numbers, it leads you to believe that I may be dead by the time this project is actually profitable. Okay? If you're looking at this from sort of an economical or a logistical standpoint, it's really unbelievable. On top of that, there's no parking. There's absolutely no parking at this stadium. So the nearest T-stop is like a mile away. So what are people going to do? Try to find parking on the streets? Like, yes, in one hand, there could be a potential benefit for businesses that are there, where there could be more foot traffic, so on and so forth. But it's also a disruptor. Okay, it's also a disruptor. And I don't think people are going to walk. I mean, I'm sure some people will. But to walk a mile to get to the stadium from the nearest T stop because there's no parking seems a little bit ridiculous to me. The whole project seems ridiculous. And, the group that put together the, let's say, re-envisioning or redevelopment of this, while I was there at the this event, they really had a good insight of, I think, what the community would want. And again, these are just a draft. It doesn't mean they're set in stone. But again, I'm going to leave a link to those in the description below just so you can get a feel or an understanding of what's going on. But overall, I think this project is ridiculous. And not only because of what it is, but it's just like an abuse of power almost, right? It's despicable to the residents of Boston and their money. It's unbelievable. They had every opportunity to renovate this place over the years, and they just let it get neglected. Now all of a sudden they want to use it for a private space for some sort of profit. I don't know, guys. It's unbelievable to me. But that's it for today's video. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.